Eclectors, and welcome back to the Eclectic Collection. Today is episode 127, Workplace Pitfalls. And I'm sure you're all thinking of terrible stuff happening at work. I know I do all the time. And it doesn't really matter where you work or what kind of situation or setting or office or school or hospital or engineering firm or whatever you do. It doesn't matter. Whatever thing you're into, you got people around, chances are. And those people can somehow play into maybe being project managers or partners and stuff, or you have to work with people on certain things, or maybe you don't. But either way, you have to work, and there's stuff you have to do. So there's two. Technically, I guess they're psychological workplace theories, but most people have heard of the one and not necessarily the other. And they are Murphy's Law and Parkinson's Law. So Murphy's Law is kind of like people know that because it's extra miserable. Poor Murphy. Shout out to my doggy. Murphy's Law is just the idea that anything is going to go wrong. Anything that could possibly go wrong is going to go wrong, and you should just expect it to go wrong. So no matter what is happening or going well or something's on track, you just expect that it's going to go wrong. Something's going to find a way to sabotage all your hard work. It's going to be bad, and it's a negative way of looking at things, sort of seeing the hole in the donut. But people always say, oh, Murphy's Law, something bad happened. Not cool, not something you want to do, but it is a negative look at things that people often embrace because they're like, oh, what had to happen? What could have happened? What should we have done differently? And if something does go disastrously awry, even if it's not, their fault, or if it's, I don't know, tragic, weird, disaster, strange thing, it could be a flood in the company on that floor that day. It's nothing that you can do, act of God. They still, it's Murphy's Law, like I was doomed to failure. So most people are familiar with that one, and I definitely would not encourage you to live that way. I mean, yes, definitely look for the tragic flaw in the Death Star before you build it, but make sure that you have the idea of what you have down. And if you're confident in your work and you did your due diligence, then hopefully everything will work out well. I guess this is less so, and maybe if you're an engineer and you're building something, of course you hope it works, or you can certainly test it before it goes out, or if it's a new drug to combat a problem, of course you don't want side effects or whatever the thing is, whatever the genre is, there's always challenges and obstacles. But if you try and kink them out ahead of time without giving way to being sad about it or assuming that it's going to be negative or succumbing to the fact that something bad is going to happen invariably, then don't do that. Look for things you have to fix, and then make sure that you fix them, and that's that. Parkinson's Law, a little less known, and I feel like I fall victim to this one a little bit more. You could argue it's a bit of a procrastination thing, but I think it's just a weird phenomenon with time. Parkinson's Law says that the work expands to meet the time allotted. So if you have 2 hours to do something and it's only a 25-minute task, you should be able to do it in 25 minutes, give or take 5. And very often it still takes you that 2 hours. And even seasoned people that have everything down to a science and know what they're doing and where everything is and are totally organized still fall victim to this. Now, that could be because other factors come in and people are challenging you, asking you questions, interrupting you, and you're allowing that to happen instead of just closing your doors and doing it. I mean, that could be a way that happens. But if you're just organically doing your work and you really don't have the interruptions or anything else, somehow the time just sort of seeps into that space that was allocated for it, even if that space is bigger than what you needed. And I don't know why, but it's one of those things, and it's almost like your time particles are being sucked away. When I was in 8th grade, we had these readers, and I wish I could remember the name of it. It was a play on time and time machines, but it was this guy, and he was an author, and he was saying how he felt that time was just slipping away from him, and how he would get up every day and he would make himself breakfast and do a little workout and then sit down to write at like 10 a.m. And he used to be able to crank out a perfectly good page of a book in like 20 minutes, and how 2 or 3 hours later, and he was only cranking out like a page or two. And he went to a psychologist about it, and I'm scattered on the details because I just remember the story. It was a short story, and it was pretty cool. But eventually the psychologist puts this little box in his room, and they don't really describe it, but you come to find out that it's like this time particle counter. And later on, the guy's days are getting so short that he's actually getting nothing done. And first he thought it was writer's block and this and that, but it turns out that there's some I don't want to say alien, but I'll say supernatural alternative thing that's like sucking his time particles. And when the psychologist comes back and checks the box, it ends up being that he has 3/4 of his day are being mismatched, or he's redirected, or he's not paying attention, or they're getting taken from him. So that's why it felt so poorly. Of course, the guy helps him by some supernatural means, and it's all fine after that. But I always thought that was an interesting story, and I always took to it because I'm kind of in the middle of a Parkinson's law right now. I'm trying to batch process when I work on things, and part of it too is timing and just being able to sit down and do what you got to do and come up with what you're going to say. And, I usually have a ton of ideas. It's just a matter of time and sitting and getting everything done. And of course, capturing Kevin, my beloved engineer, because I am going to start putting ankle bracelets on him actually. But, being able to do that and have the time as you sit and you think, okay, well, this is going to be X minutes and that'll be X minutes. And I talk that long for this one. It never works out. It just never works out. No matter what you allocate or think is going to happen, it's just never works out. And that's even if you're sitting and going and cranking out one thing after one thing after one thing. I find that too when it comes to estimations from, professional development things, which I hate, by the way. But they always make you do this. You go to some professional development thing. Oh, this will take 2 hours. And it's supposed to take 2 hours. They never take 20 minutes. No, they always end up taking like 5 hours, even when they allocate 2 hours. So that's the worst, is if it's more time than is predicted. Great if it's less, but that's rarely the situation. So any kind of thing like that, it's hard. Same thing with traffic or, tasks or to-do lists. And people always try to put the simplest, smallest things and get them out of the way first. But I have found that you spin your wheels most on the smallest and tiniest of events or tasks. It's just the way it rolls. For some reason, the bigger things, when you knock them out of the way, you feel better, you're more confident, you plow forward, and then you get everything else done like da-da-da-da-da. So who knows? That's my 2 cents in the 25-cent version. But Murphy's Law is bad things are going to happen no matter what you plan or how well you did it. And Parkinson's Law, the work expands to meet the time allotted. So if you have a 20-minute project and 2 hours to do it, you're probably going to take every bit of that 2 hours. Maybe because you start overthinking yourself. Maybe because you want to double check, triple check, or have somebody else look at it. There's nothing wrong with being good and double checking. I would err on the caution of watching out for perfectionism, because ain't nobody perfect and nothing's going to come out exactly perfect, but that's just the way it is. But Parkinson's Law is a little less common, or at least people don't talk about it as much, and it's out there. It's a real thing. You could argue that it could parallel and border procrastination, and certainly if you are a procrastinator, you can fall victim to it easily. But next thing you know, you're playing Spider Solitaire at your desk and not doing the thing that was on your screen. Don't do that. That would be bad. But yeah, so watch out for them. They're time particle stealers, as that cool reader was back in the day. Wish you could remember that short story. Can't get a hold of that reader, but it was cool. I thought it was neat. If you liked what you heard today, then check out eclecticcollectionpodcast.com or follow us on your preferred platform. I'm Terry Tenaglia. Thanks for listening.